All right, last time we left off, we had created the node structure. So we've created this now. Now let's go ahead. We're going to create the doubly linked list class. Let's go ahead, and basically that's this. We're going to start with this and then all the methods inside of it. So let's go ahead and create the class. We're going to template. This is a templated class. Type name. Oops, did that wrong. Type T. This is a class, and the class name is doubly linked list, and I want to make sure that I spelled this correctly from here on out. Doubly linked list. Here is the body. I'm going to end it with a semicolon. Okay. I'm going to have a public section and a private section. And those do need to be colons, not semicolons. We're going to go ahead and start in the private section. We're going to create the first, the count, the last. Let's go do that. Let's see here. Okay. So we are going to be using shared pointers. And this one's called first. I can see that I spelt that wrong again. I'll fix that. And semicolon at the end. Last. And then our count is an unsigned int. We're going to initialize that to 0. And semicolon. Good. So we've got that section done. Now we can start writing our functions. Our first function is we're going to insert something into the first node. Return type is going to be void. We're not going to be pulling anything out of it. We're just going to be passing into it. We're going to be inserting into the first node, or creating and inserting the first node. We're going to be passing in a constant type T by reference with the name data. Semicolon because we are prototyping it and we're not writing it inside the class. So now let's go ahead and go write that. So let's talk about what our possibilities are. We always want to start with errors and then do special cases. And then our general case. Let's go ahead and put that in our code. So let's, it says templated. Type name. T. We begin with the return type. Then we put in the name of the class. This is doubly linked list. And I want to make sure I spell it correctly. Type T. And then the name of the function, which is insert first. And then any parameters we're going to be passing in this case, it is what it's suggesting there. Const T. T is our type. By reference, name data. And then here's our body. And we go ahead and start writing the body. Now we have an error scenario. These are the things we always want to check for. Any special cases, and our general case or general scenario. Okay, so if we jump back over here, we start thinking about what could be an error. Well, if we have no nodes, since we're adding nodes in, that's not going to be an error. We're not deleting in this. This is an insert, so that doesn't matter. What about if I was adding a whole bunch and I ran out of memory? That would be an error scenario, but in order for that to happen, you would have to take up all the memory. So we're not going to worry about that. So for this case, there is no error scenario. So we're not even going to worry about that at this time on this particular function. So our special cases. Special case is when we do something different than our general case. And one of our special cases would be when we're empty, when our count is at 0. And our first is null pointer, our last is null pointer, and we don't have a node. So this is our special case. When we create our first node is a special case. That's going to be different than our general scenario. So let's go ahead. This is going to be if first doesn't exist, or if first is null pointer. So if not first, first thing we need to do is create a node. We got to create this node, and we want it to come null pointers on both ends. And with the data, when we create it, we don't want any data in it. We already took care of that when we created the node structure. So let's just go ahead and create a shared pointer node. So shared pointer. Let's just name it temp. And notice here where we would have done new before, we're going to say make shared, and it's going to be a node of type P, and that is it. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the data into the node. So first thing we want to do is replace this with our data. So we want to put data in here. Whatever our data is, that's supposed to be a D for data. So let's do that. We're going to say the temp's data is equal to data. This data here is this data being passed in. This temp data is right here, because remember we named this temp. Okay, so we just put temp data is this portion of our node. We just put that in there. That's the first thing we did. Next thing we need to do is make this so it's not a null pointer. The first, we need to update these three items. The first, the count, and the last. And we want the first to point to the node. We want the last to point to the node. And we want our count to now be 1. So let's go ahead and go take care of that. So this first is equal to our temp. This last is equal to our temp. And finally, count plus plus. And we have taken care of this first case in our insert first. One thing we can do to clean this up a little bit, we could use the auto keyword here. So when we use that auto keyword, most IDEs will take care of that. It looks like Replit might be having an issue with it. Let's run it and see. Yeah, it's having an issue with it. So we're going to go ahead and put it back to a shared pointer. We still probably will fail out because we don't have a main yet. But otherwise, the special case for our insert first is done. Next, we'll go ahead and do our general scenario.